Hello, welcome to the channel. My name is Joe, where I help you make better coffee and give you honest reviews. Today I have two espresso machines. I'm going to do a little comparison side by side. The one is the Delonghi Magnifica Evo. I've already done a full review of that machine. I'll link it above here. And same thing with the Terra Kaffe TK02. I've also done a full review, so I'll link it above there, and you can take a look if you want a more detailed view of each one of these machines. The one I reviewed of the Delonghi didn't have this milk carafe thing, but it really doesn't make a massive difference. It's just notice that you're going to have the ability to auto froth versus manually frothing. I'll explain some of the differences though. But before we get into it, definitely don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot. And if you subscribe, we definitely have a big thing coming up. We're going to be at the Specialty Coffee Expo. So catch me on Saturday, April 8th or 13th through the 14th. We will be live, hopefully, and maybe we'll also do a couple of videos as well. So stay tuned for that. But let's start off by just kind of going over some of these machine differences and some of the pros and cons of each of them. So first off is just turning the machine on. Pro of the Delonghi, it is faster. It heats up very fast. It takes maybe 60 seconds to 90 seconds to turn on, whereas the Terra Kaffe takes a little longer. It takes probably 3 to 5 minutes. At least what I've noticed. But the downside with the Delonghi is there's no way to have it automatically turn on. With some espresso machines, you could even buy like a smart plug. You could plug it in and have it auto turn on, but because this is set up where you have to hit that power button, that's not going to work. There's some ways around doing that, and you can kind of jerry-rig something to work, but out the gate, this does not have an auto on. Whereas the Terra Kaffe, you can go into the settings very easily, and you can set it to turn on at a certain time every day, or you can use your phone, which is great because all of us probably always have our phone on us. Super easy to just turn the machine on, and you could do it from any location. You don't actually have to be in the house. So anyways, that's the turn on cycle. Next is I'll talk about the milk carafes. Both of them kind of have their pluses and minuses. Generally, I'm not a huge fan of the milk carafes. They're just kind of cumbersome because you don't want milk sitting on your countertop, just getting gross, especially over a few hours every day. Milk doesn't last very long that way. Maybe if you did almond milk or something like that, not as big a deal. But if you're doing normal milk, it is kind of, unsanitary to just leave it out. Now the argument is you could pull it off and put it in. With the Delonghi, it's actually kind of difficult to pull this thing off and get it into like the refrigerator. This one's not too bad. It is pretty easy to pop off. You have a little like tap here, you just pull off and you put the whole thing in. But the downside with that is you generally want to clean out the hose, and this hose is in here, so you actually have to pull it out every time, do a cleaning cycle, and then put it in. Not the end of the world, first world disorders, I guess, but this is just kind of the differences in these. This one, it also has a notification. I think is kind of cool. So if you have milk in here, it knows that there's milk. There's a sensor below, so the Delonghi knows if there's milk in it. Whereas the Terra Kaffe, there's no way of it knowing. There's no sensor in here or on the back, so you technically could make a latte without any milk in it, and you just get some splatters and stuff like that. I believe it will auto stop at some point, but just know that this has the auto functionality. And actually, right now we have it connected, but there's no milk in it, so it's not even letting me select the cappuccino latte or my latte option. And speaking of my latte, that's another piece that I'd like to talk about, the big difference between these two machines. This one has an app with app functionality and a screen that you can do a lot of stuff on. This does not. You have some touch, buttons and things like that, and you can get through them doing some options on there, but it really doesn't have the functionality this does. If you wanted to actually change the grind, you could actually get finer and coarser right from here. You can go into these settings again and change that. On here, you actually have to manually spin it, and you got to dial it in. But there's different things like that. And then the My Latte thing, you can customize a latte. You have to kind of fiddle around with holding the button and then selecting and things like that. Whereas this, you could just go into the settings, select how many ounces you want of coffee, how many ounces you want of milk, and so on and so forth. So there's just a lot more customization and a lot more ease of use, I think, with the Terra Kaffe compared to the Delonghi. Now, we were speaking about the grinder earlier. That's where I personally think the Delonghi actually wins. The Delonghi gives you a lot more wiggle room with going finer and coarser. It's making pretty big steps. You can actually, what I would consider, choking the machine out. So you could actually go fine enough to the point where the espresso will basically not even come out. Whereas the Terra Kaffe doesn't give you the full capability of going quite that fine. Okay, so we were talking about the grinder earlier, so let me kind of give you some details on this. And it's one place where I think the Delonghi actually wins in this category. It just gives you a lot more play in how fine and coarse you can go on the grinder. So in this case over here, you can actually turn the knob, and it's right under this tab here. So you could turn it and get it to the point where it will more than likely choke out the machine, which means basically you've gone so fine that it doesn't have enough pressure to push espresso out at that point, which I like because there's plenty of different coffees that you can dial in on this machine and get it a pretty close to dial in situation like you would on a more traditional espresso machine. It's never going to be quite the same on either of these machines. If you came here and you're thinking that you're going to get what you would get at a local coffee shop with a La Marzocco espresso machine, this is not going to be that. It will get you close to that, but it's not going to be quite that good. But this one gets you closer to being able to dial in like a traditional espresso machine. This one gets you pretty close, but not quite as much play. And to make the adjustment to it's a little funnier. There's no adjuster here. I actually like it, but you have to go to the espresso profile, hit the specialty, and then actually change the grind size here. And there's actually 5 options. 5 is the coarsest, 1 is the finest. So I always keep mine at 1. You can check out my settings video I have for the TK02. But yeah, so that's the grinder. Okay, so another thing I wanted to just talk about is cleaning and maintenance. Again, this is sort of a situation where I think Delonghi might be better. Terra Kaffe, is to be determined, I guess. This is a closed loop system. What that means is you don't have access to any of the brew chamber or anything like that. You have to rely on it doing its own cleaning. So it does do cleaning cycles quite frequently automatically, and then on top of that, it also does it will tell you when it needs certain cleaning, whether it's descaling or back flushing systems. So it is nice that it does all that. On the Terra Kaffe, though, you do get full access to the brew chamber. So in general, I prefer that. I would like to have access to it just to check in on it. I mean, after you have a machine for 5-10 years, maybe, it's possible that, it's pretty moldy. You might want to pull that out and just rinse it off. I had a Jura ENA 6, I believe, that it had that. It was a closed system like this. They said it was, perfectly clean and everything. I pulled it out. It was 6 years later, and it was very moldy. So, otherwise you would have had to send the machine, I did it myself, but it technically voided the warranty that didn't exist anymore. But, it's just nice to have the access. But I do like on here that everything's kind of automated and it takes care of it. So again, you know, to be determined, I would say, but I would beg to say that the Delonghi Magnifica is probably better suited for people that like to have as much access to the machine as possible. Okay, another thing I'd like to talk about is the warming trays. Technically, there is a lack of a warming tray on the Terra Kaffe, but my hand is extremely warm right now. My hand is extremely cool right now. So really, the Delonghi, even though it has a section for heating, doesn't really do anything. I've actually never had it really get warm, ever. So there's that. And then on top of that, this stays warm for a while. The automatic shutoff, I think when you first get the machine, is kind of a while. It's like 8 hours, something like that. So it stays on for a long time, and it stays pretty hot. Now, when you do go to make an espresso, it does have to like reheat everything. It's not like this where if it's on, it will just be able to just make an espresso. It does have to reheat. It's kind of like an eco mode. But the top definitely gets way hotter. So if you do actually want to put some cups here, you know, maybe put some border on here or something like that, because it's a little slipperier than that one, but at least it gets hot. So there's that. Okay, a little rapid fire round here. I'm just going to go kind of quick. The dosing side, the overdoser, if you want to like do your own dosing, there's a little spot here. I do note that I like the magnets on the Terra Kaffe. They just easily pop back in, and you can see it knows when it's open or closed. The Delonghi doesn't know that, but there is a separate doser, so if you want to dose your own coffee, and then you have some here. A little less premium feeling. Drip trays, they're both very big. The drip tray here also pulls out the container, but it's not quite as deep. So if you'll look here, this is, you know, pretty much this is where all the water is being contained. On the other one, you have two separate sections. So this is for the grounds bin here, and then this is for the drip tray. And this is a big, wide dog. Look at this thing. I've never seen a more deep and wide drip tray in my life, actually. So it's nice because you don't have to replace it all the time, but you know, it's a little cumbersome, I'll say that much. So I think that concludes pretty much all the things I want to talk about on this machine. Let's make 2 shots of espresso, and I'll show you a small oddity on the Delonghi. So let's do that. Okay, so we're going to quickly make a shot of espresso on each one. I'm going to do a quick time on both of them, see which one goes faster, and also see which one is closer to being dialed in or whatever, and then go from there. So we'll talk about a few things as we go too. So I'm going to go ahead and hit espresso, start the timer. They both tamped it around the same time. This is pre-infusing. This one did a very small tap. So there's a weird thing where it does this over here, and then it's going to stop again. So it definitely takes longer to make an espresso on this side. Now, see what I was talking about with choking the machine out? We have it actually slightly too fine right now. And you could tell because it's dripping, there's not a steady flow. But that's okay. You can always adjust it. But I just kind of want to demonstrate what that looked like. So in this case, you'd want to turn it to go a little bit coarser. We're going to taste both of them just to kind of show you what we got here. All right. And we just have Lavazza Super Crema in here, nothing crazy. So the Delonghi obviously loses in a race to make an espresso shot, mostly because it does this tamp, then just kind of sits there for a while, and maybe a touch of water, and then it does another pre-infusion, and then goes. So it's kind of it's a little bit of an odd situation, but honestly, it's still not bad, even though it was like way overdone. These, if you're used to a normal espresso machine, if you're doing shots, taking shots, you know, out of a cafe style espresso machine, any of these machines are going to taste kind of watery. So just keep that in mind. But you know, both of them are great machines. I do want to note this does actually have a more traditional drip style coffee. So if you click the drip, it'll actually do slow pressure and make a slow brewed drip coffee. This has a coffee button, but it basically just makes a really long shot of espresso. So that's just a thing to note. So that's the two machines here. If I were to pick one, I would go with the Terra Kaffe just because it's a little bit sleeker. If you're going for a super automatic machine, this is just so much more seamless. You have a touch screen here. Basically, anybody can just come up here and hit the button and know what they're getting. Not that it's bad here. I gave this machine a very high score as well. I think it was like 8.6, something like that. We gave it a pretty good score. This machine was in the 9s. So, you know, they're both great machines. It's really just what you want. If you want more control, if you're drinking just espresso, if you're a big espresso drinker, go with the Delonghi. I would highly recommend that over, just because you have more control over the espresso shot. If you're doing a lot of lattes, if you have guests over a lot, you know, if you just want a more seamless experience, go with the Terra Kaffe. So that's the video. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing, liking the video, and we will catch you in the next one. Thanks.